Yay! All right, so we got everybody up and running. YouTube, I apologize. The quality on my laptop is not that great, but it's okay. welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Hey, cousin. Thanks for joining me. So as you join, if you're watching at a later date, however that goes for you, go ahead and let me know. Go ahead and let me know where you're from. If you already compost, hot or cold compost. If you already have a worm bin, let me know. Let me know. And we'll go ahead and get started here at the 3-minute mark. So if you're watching at a later time, you can go ahead and fast forward to 3 minutes and we'll get started there. All right, it's looking good. Awesome. We have YouTube ready to go. Yes, ma'am. I got you. So while we're waiting, we can talk about that a little bit. Vermicompost is definitely great for your cannabis plants, as you know. So I'm excited that you want to learn about it. Hey, over here on Facebook. I can't see everybody that's joining, but welcome in, everyone. I have my little notes, so I don't get to babbling on here. All right, so we've hit the 3-minute mark. So let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Alicia. I'm the founder of Princess Gardens Vermicompost Center. And our mission is really just to help everyone create more sustainable lives. So I want us all to delight in Earth's magic so that we can create a better planet. So what is vermicomposting? Let me just put my little notes up here, y'all. So what is vermicomposting? Vermicomposting is the process of breaking down organic matter using worms. And I know there's a lot of people on here that can't use like the hot and cold composting systems, but vermicomposting is very much different because you don't have to really worry so much about temperatures and things like that, depending on your worms and things like that. So the process of this goes, you have your organic material, you have a leftover, we'll say salad mix that went bad in the refrigerator. Basically, you'll take that, you'll feed it to your worms. Your worms will consume it and eat it and delight in it. They're going to love all of those microbes that they're consuming. They're then going to poop that out like we all do. And then we're going to take the poop from the worms and apply it to our plants. So another thing that we are heavy advocates for here at Princess Gardens is creating self-sufficiency by growing your own food. With the way that times are right now, food shortages and things like that are on the rise, and just things being super expensive, it's on the rise. So we want for people to be able to feed themselves, feed their families, feed their communities. So you take that vermicompost and you apply it to your garden, which is going to help your plants to have all of the nutrients that they need readily available. So where vermicompost is kind of different from your hot compost, we'll say, is you typically have to go through, and I don't know a whole lot about hot compost, so I'm not going to try to get on here and act like an expert, but with hot compost, you have to wait for it to cool down and things like that. But with vermicompost, you can take it right out of your worm bin after your worms have processed through that organic matter, and apply it to your garden. And it's going to give your garden that NPK, your calcium, your magnesium, trace minerals, and other micronutrients that your plant needs in order to grow and be great. So that's the process. After your worm castings, your worm poop goes into the garden. Basically, what happens next is it nourishes your garden and it feeds your family, feeds yourself, feeds your community. And that's what we're all about. So when we think about what type of worm bins we can set up, it can be as simple or as elaborate as you want. Y'all, I have seen some of the cutest worm bins on Etsy. You silly. I have seen the cutest worm bins, and they look like these fancy pieces of furniture, but they're really worm bins. And it's amazing because when you go through the process of vermicomposting, there's not really smells and things that go along with that. It smells like earth. And like I always tell you guys, to me, earth just smells like it smells before it rains. So you don't have to worry about it smelling or anything like that. So the way that we set up our bins here at the Vermicomposting Center is just have regular storage bins that we've turned into worm bins. And so it can get as simple as that. And I'll show you guys an example here in just a second, but it can get as simple or elaborate as you would like for it to be, like I said. So what are the benefits of vermicomposting? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So there are so many benefits to vermicomposting. Firstly, if you're someone that likes to garden, likes to grow things, it's going to be super important to know that vermicomposting is going to create a nutrient-rich fertilizer and soil conditioner that's going to give your plants everything they need in order to thrive and survive. And then those microbes are going to stay down in that soil. So all you have to do is amend with your favorite organic amendments, excuse me, amendments, which we also provide here at Princess Gardens, that's going to further nourish your plants. Vermicompost is also going to increase your plant growth and the yield of that, whatever it is that you're growing. It also helps with pest and disease resistancies. And then, of course, there's the environmental aspect of it being beneficial, because what it does is it helps us to reduce the methane that we're producing by taking that organic matter that we would typically throw into the trash can that's going to break down and create more methane. It's going to take that and divert it from the landfill into our gardens. So there's a huge environmental impact that we can have by diverting our own waste. Not a lot of people know, but in America, we all, absolutely. In America, the average American sends about between 1 to 4 pounds to landfills every day. And a lot of people don't think that's a big deal, but if you think about it, there's around 300 million Americans. And if we're all sending that much food waste to the landfills, you can just imagine how much methane and toxic gases that are being released into our environment. So huge environmental impact that we can have by vermicomposting and diverting our own waste. Another benefit of vermicomposting is that it takes up less space than your typical compost. With your normal composting, you have to have space to be able to properly decompose your organic material. So with hot composting, you have to be able to build a 3-foot pile of organic matter in order for it to break down and heat up the way that it needs to in order to create the compost. But not everybody has space like that. I myself live in an apartment, so that's not an option for me. I do have a bucket that I use for cold composting, but yeah, I'm not that great at it. So yeah, vermicomposting kind of takes that need for space in order to do it out of the equation. You can set up a bucket or a bin as big or as small as you want and get to diverting your waste, okay? And it also is going to be a faster processing time, because if I were to go and feed my worms a pound of organic matter today, by next Friday, that organic matter is going to be worm castings that I can go ahead and feed to my plants. It's faster and easier, and anyone can do it. And then it also creates employment, or it can generate a source of income. So if we were to say we create a vermicompost city or a vermicompost center in every city, that's going to create job opportunities for the people in that community. If you're not into creating a whole center centered around vermicomposting, you can just take your worm castings and sell at a farmer's market or things like that. So it's going to help you to make some money if you would like to explore that option. So how you can get started is super simple. Of course, we do offer worm bins and worms on princessgardensllc.com that you can always go and grab and start your worm bin. But if you are super excited and ready to get started now, I'm going to show you guys how you can do that. So what I have here, YouTube, you might not be able to see this very well once I set it down, but I apologize. I'll show you guys as we go along. So I've already pre-moistened our bedding for these worms. What this is basically, instead of using plastic bags at the grocery store, I always use paper king soupers. They be slacking sometimes, so I have to use plastic or my own reusable stuff. But when I go to Whole Foods and Target, they typically have the brown paper bags. So I shredded those up. I have a micro, what's it called? A micro cut paper shredder, and it creates like the perfect bedding. So I've already pre-moistened it so you guys don't have to sit through it. And this is just a storage bin that I got for $1.99 at IKEA. IKEA is my jam. And then I know not everybody has worms sitting around their house unless they go outside and dig them up, of course. But if you go to your local Walmart or like your local bait shop fishing store, they typically have European night crawlers, which are great decomposers as well. So here at Princess Gardens, we do use red wigglers. They are, for us here in Colorado, they are the best option because they're a super hardy worm. And sometimes I keep the bins outside, so it helps. Having the red wigglers helps with not having to worry so much about temperature swings and things like that. So we use red wigglers, but Maven's bin is composed of European night crawlers. Now the night crawlers are a little too big for me. I be freaking out a little bit, but Maven loves them. So like I said, this is simple and easy enough for even a 3-year-old to do. So I'm going to take these worms. Give me a second, y'all. Sorry, Instagram. Y'all paused for a minute. Oh, never get calls, but of course I did today, that's okay. All right, so I'm taking the worms. These are the worms that I typically take with me if I'm doing like a farmer's market or something like that. So I'm just going to sprinkle this bedding in here. It's mostly just cocoa coir, which is what we typically use for our worm bins. So I'm just going to sprinkle them in here. Oh, there's lots of babies. Oh, I see some adults too. There's lots of cocoons as well. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to be gentle with them, but you can see some of them hanging. Sorry, y'all. Let me see. What can I scoop them out with? Oh, I have a twig. Sorry. Come on up out of there. Red wigglers don't get too big, but they're big enough to do the job. Worms process about half their weight in organic matter each day. So if you have a big enough herd, which I don't know if that's like the scientific name for a group of worms, but if you have a big enough herd of worms, then you can divert quite a bit of waste. in a little amount of time. So there we go. We got them all in there. Hopefully, if not, then I will check after I finish this. So there's lots of worms in here. And I'm basically just going to work them in. You want to make sure that you have at least 6 inches of bedding for them, which we're probably right at. Now, I am going to tell you guys the only downside to vermicomposting is that it's not temperature regulated, so it doesn't heat up very much. And so when you put things like strawberries and things like that in here, the seeds are gonna sprout, which for me, that's not a big deal. I have a tomato plant outside that's like flourishing because it sprouted in my worm bin. So I'm just gonna mix them all in here. I typically don't put tops on my bins, but for this type of bin, I have been, just to kind of experiment with it and see what I really, really like best. So we have that mixed up in there. Got the top on. Our top has, don't mind the cracks, y'all, but our top has holes in it so that they can get air. And that's it. 5 minutes and you have your own worm bin. So like I said, if you don't have worms, which most people don't, you can always just go to Walmart, pick some up, and you can create a worm bin for under $5 in under 5 minutes. So yes, that is how you can get started. Are there any questions? Let's see. Oh, I don't know how to check my YouTube questions. No, I think we're good. All right, cool. No questions. Cool. Well, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. Everywhere we are Princess Gardens Worm Farm. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question. And although we are a for-profit business, we run very much like a nonprofit. So we are in schools, making sure the babies learn this information and create more sustainable practices in their homes. Would you mind keeping big worm outside? It really just depends. So the question is, would you recommend keeping a big worm bin outside? It just depends on what you want to do. Yeah, so it just depends on what you prefer to do. Because I know when the bigger the worm bin, of course, is going to take up more space. I'm going to put it outside. In the wintertime, what I've found to be most effective, last year I kept my worms outside and I just covered them with the leaves that we collected from the yard. Covered them up really good to help with that insulation. And then every feeding, I would add in coffee grounds, or you can use you don't really have fresh grass scraps in the winter, but you can add grass clippings to help to warm the bin up a little bit, because as they process through their feeding, those coffee grounds are going to help to warm things up. So yeah, you can definitely keep it outside. It just depends on your preference and what you prefer and what you have space for. Sorry, y'all, I have cocoa coral on my lap. So yeah, like I was saying, we do operate like a nonprofit, although we are a for-profit entity. So you're very welcome. So all of our proceeds, all of our profits go into our community efforts, so that we can make sure that everyone is learning about sustainability and creating more sustainable, healthy lifestyle practices, from the food that we eat to the way that we dispose of our waste, and work towards eliminating our waste as much as possible. So yes, thank you all so much for joining me, and I look forward to interacting with you all very soon, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. There we go. Oh, wait. Oh, am I still streaming? Sorry, YouTube.